Good evening, friends. Today we are starting with a session that is all about the topic under organization behavior, that is perception. Okay, so what we are going to run through today in a last minute revision kind of a session, we're going to explore again the concept of perception, then this process, then there are any factors influencing the perception, then there are the different kinds of barriers that actually hinders our perception process, and then enhancing the perceptual skills. Yes, we have all those today to, have a look into it. Okay, so now when I'm talking about perception, so first of all, a very important quick thing that runs in our mind is whether perception has a definition or not. Yes, of course, it has a definition, it has a concept. So what is perception is all about? Okay, like suppose in the morning I just get up, so I see that across my window there is a very nice sunny day. The sun is just getting arise, and the night, that means the ambience is very different. You can hear the sound or whispering of different birds, different animals around you. Okay, a chirping, basically chirping of the birds, actually that would be the correct word for it. Okay, so what is this all about? Okay, this is what we call it as stimulus around any person. Then as a person, as a human being, we accept the stimulus around our surrounding. Then we try to understand the meaning of this stimulus. Okay, that means you try to interpret the stimulus, and then you try to perceive it. So every morning now, I know one thing, that it will be sunny, lighted. Okay, it would be around close to 5:30 that the day has started. Okay, the sun haven't had arisen, but the animals, they have awaked, or the birds have started chirping, and we have a very favorite voice in the morning, that is of hen. Okay, so this is how the perception is built about a morning, because of the stimulus around it. Okay, so this is just an explanation. Coming back to the proper definition, you can say that it is a process through which people actually receive and interpret information from the environment. Okay, then the other would be, it would be a way of forming impression about oneself, about other people's, and about the daily life experiences. So it serves as a screen or a filter through which information passes before it has any effect on a people. So perception are influenced by various factors, and since people behave according to this perception, the consequences of these differences, whatever they have, the background and everything, while they're utilizing it during interpretation, would be quite substantial in terms of what is going to happen next. Okay. Then we have a perception process. So basically we divide perception process into 3 stages. One is perceptual inputs. The other would be perceptual mechanism. Then the other would be, the last part would be the output. And then finally, on the basis of all these 3 stages, a behavior is built up. Okay. So we'll first explore what things we can include in perceptual inputs. So perceptual inputs would be number of stimuli that are constantly confronting by people in form of information, might be in form of objects, events, or other people, etc. in the environment. Like this is the perceptual inputs. Then there is a mechanism. When I talk about a mechanism, a person receives information. He tries to process that information through the process of selection, organization, and interpretation. Okay, so how we first select things for actually perceiving them. There are basically 2 different factors that plays a very important role when you talk about perceptual selectivity. Okay, perceptual selectivity refers to the tendency to select certain objects from the environment for attention. So there are external factors to it and there are internal factors to it. So let's explore the list of external factors first. This is size. Suppose there is an elephant and a rat. So obviously first you will notice elephant, and in case you still have curiosity that there is something around elephant, then you might notice mouse. So size matters a lot in perception selection. Okay, then we say intensity. Intensity would be like if you see someone with red hairs, oh, that would be a great thing. Everybody will be attracted to that specific person. Okay, so intensity can be a bright colors, they can be the intensity of light, or that can be, a whispering, or might be yelling. Okay, anything that is very different and that you can point out very easily. Then there are repetitions. Okay, suppose if I'm repeating something again and again, then you'll definitely notice it. And the teacher always has a habit, repeat some important things or sentence or some kind of a things which they want special attention from student side. They keep on repeating it. Okay, so status. Then status would be like high status, high profile people have always grabbed our attention very clearly. Right now in news, the Karnataka state government elections that's happening. Okay, so we can see the BJP versus Congress scenario. So both are very high profile parties in our country. So that has grabbed the attention of whole country and media as well. Sonam Kapoor's wedding, that was again in the media. Okay, so this is how the status reflects the attention or selectivity. Then contrast. Contrast would be like something which is contrasting. So right now if my background is white and I'm wearing something very dark like black or something like that, so that is being highlighted very easily. So this is contrast. Or to give you an example would be like if you're watching a movie and there is an exit written with LED lights and it's in red in color. Okay, so that is again a contrast. Then movement. If an object shows or express some kind of motion, okay, or people is moving. So suppose if I start moving here and there, then you will also start noticing more towards me. Okay, so your attention would be more towards me. So it's something like that. Okay, then there is a novelty, or you can say familiarity. So if I know that the situation or this person is very familiar to me, okay, so I'll have my attention towards that specific person or situation. Then nature. Okay, so by nature, actually, we are trying to say that, how the object is. Like the object is visual or it's just audio, or whether it involves some kind of picture, video clippings or audio clippings or something like that. Different kind of voices or different kind of musical instruments have been used. So, the nature. Okay, so what are these external factors? How they help you guys to have perceptual selectivity. Now we move on to internal factors. So when I talk about internal factors, we have first thing that is learning. Okay, so when I say learning, so we know how learning takes place. Like if I have an interest, then I learn some concept. If I don't have interest, but it has just been forced on me that if you do it, then you'll get something like that. So reward or motivations are related to some kind of a learning, then I'll do it. So there are various forms of learning, but we always associate learning with a cognitive awareness. So by which we basically want that our mind are organizing the information and they are trying to understand some kind of a concept and try to correlate it in future. So that is all about learning. Then motivation. Yes, of course, motivation is the thing that helps us to actually perceive things correctly or wrongly. Okay, so suppose I have very positive feeling about gaining some good position, or I'm very ambitious about it, so I'll make sure my networking is very strong. I make sure that I always take advantage of some kind of opportunity that are beneficial to me. So something like that I'll keep on working for. Okay, so that would be the motivation. Or to give you a small good example would be if I'm hungry, so the foodie things or the smell of the food just attracts me a lot. So personality, yes, personality is also very important as far as perceptual selectivity is concerned. Suppose old senior executive or manager is there. So he'll always keep on taunting this young generation managers or employees or junior executive, because he or she wants to express the maturity they are carrying. When it talks about younger generation, they would be more enthusiastic, more aggressive in their approach, very, very, very fast actually. Okay, so this is how the perception differs in such case when your personality is very different. Then I talk about perceptual organization. So once you're done with your this thing, internal and external factor for selectivity, then you move on to organizing the things. So the stimuli which you have received and the stimuli or the things which you have noticed and you have selected specifically, to have, or you're going to make perception about them, you'll start organizing them. So basically how a person organizes things, it would be based on figure and ground. This is a very favorite example in our perception. What happens is when you have a white paper and you're writing it with a blue pen or a black pen, so it gets easily noticed because there is a contrast in the background as well as your the color of pen that you're using for writing something. Okay, so that is a figure and ground. We generally use some kind of a figure that has a black background and a white different image. So somebody is perceiving that white image. Then somebody will notice that this is a white background and there is a black image on it, a shadow kind of image. So this is how also the perception differs on the basis of figure and ground. Then we talk about perceptual grouping. So grouping means you're trying to craft individual stimuli into meaningful patterns. So suppose I am dealing with some kind of a geometrical shape. So I know they belong to square, rectangles, triangles or circles are present. So I'll say this should clubbed under geometrical shapes. If there are certain drawing patterns or waves or something like that, that would be my patterns. So something like that. Okay. Then perceptual constancy. Constancy means you're trying to stabilize the situation. You're not in hush-hush or you're not just unsteady while perceiving something. Okay, so it means that you are trying to maintain some kind of a stability when you are actually perceiving things. Then we have perceptual interpretation. Okay, so when I talk about perceptual interpretation, it's an integral part of the perception process. Okay, so without interpretation, the selection and organization is just making no sense. Okay, so after the information has been received in the form of stimuli, then you have selected the important information as per your relevance, and then you try to organize it, and then finally you try to interpretate it. Then there is another step, that is checking. Once you interpret some information, you always try to check that information, whether by your own understanding or whether you try to take opinion of somebody else that you are right or wrong. Then we talk about reacting. And finally, once you're done with checking, you react on that specific object, person or situation, whatever thing you're basically perceiving. Then the outputs are there. Okay, so perceptual output would be the individual behavior towards that specific object. So right now, if I have to give you example, then like how you're perceiving me right now. Okay, would be an example. So the output would be either you're listening to me or the output would be you're not listening to me at all. Or maybe you must have headphones in your ears but still you're doing something on your laptop. Okay, so depends on your preference, or you have a meeting or something like that, so you might have not enough time, or you don't have that kind of right now the slot available to get login into the app. So this is how the perceptual outputs are there based on the different environmental stimuli. Okay, but this output gets affected with various factors, so that's we termed it as barriers. Okay.